Okay, we're back with our final panel, and I am so excited to have you three join me because these are the people that have their finger on the pulse of what the dance community wants. You have been there at some of the most pivotal moments in Chicago music's history, Chicago house music's history over the past couple years. We have Abigail and Seamus from HOTPRETTY. Welcome. Also worked with Manifest and Serum and Arc Music Festival. And then, of course, Abby from House Calls. It's so great to have you all here. This panel is really about innovating your brand. We had a question about that earlier, and I'm glad we did because it shows that there's hunger for this information. We've talked about Barclay Crenshaw as he made his transition back from Claude Von Stroke. How do these artists know, or these brands in house music know, when is the time to make that pivot, and how do you do it without isolating the fan base that you've already built while staying true to yourself? So this conversation is all about how to tap into that intuition and how to time the evolution. It's something that you all have experience in. So before we start, please briefly introduce yourself and talk about some of the brands that you've worked with. We can start with you, Abigail.
I'm Abigail Grohmann. I'm one half of the DJ and production duo HOTPRETTY. I've worked with Auris Presents, Arc Music Festival, and then personally No Trish Shop in fashion, and currently 66 Magazine.
Yep, and I'm Seamus, the other half, the less hot, pretty half of HOTPRETTY. And I do the creative direction for Arc, Serum, everything that for Auris, and then obviously HOTPRETTY. And I also worked in advertising for many years, so worked with brands like Continental Tire, Coleman Coolers, kind of running the gamut. So we will, I think, be focusing mostly on HOTPRETTY because I know there's a lot of artists here, and Abby has so much to say about the promotional and throwing events arm of it. So I think we'll kind of try to focus what we're talking about in terms of branding today on the HOTPRETTY side of things.
Hi everyone, my name is Abby and I am a co-founder of House Calls. I also started a company years ago called Black Hearts, if anyone is in it or familiar with it. Yeah, let's go. That's me.
So, like I said, you guys have really been part of so many pivotal moments in Chicago's house music history. Abby, I want to start with you. And by the way, this is Abigail and that's Abby, in case you're confused. I want to start with Abby because House Calls just made a pretty big pivot, going from having shows at the listening room and doing a little bit of area code to full sending on area code and having these amazing shows all over Chicago. Talk to me about, bring us inside the boardroom, you and the team. When did you know it was time to make that pivot?
Yeah, and before I get started, I got to give a shout out. The whole House Calls team is here and in the back of the room.
Love you guys.
So I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to be their mouthpiece on this. So we had a really interesting path. We started, and I'm briefly going to go backwards and then come to today. So we started our events 3 years ago at Blind Barber, if you guys are familiar. We threw a couple events there and very quickly outgrew it. We ended up finding a spot that we later called the listening room and operated as our own club for 2 years. So that was the fastest dive into the deep end that we could have ever thought to create. It was pure madness. And the train was moving and we had a choice. We were either on it or we were off it. And we very quickly chose to be full steam ahead and be on it. And that was one of the most exciting moments. We were doing events once, twice a month maximum, and ended up doing 3 a week. And it happened like that. And it was one of the most exciting times, and it was also one of the most exhausting times of our lives. But we love and we learned so much from it. About a year into owning the listening room, we came to the conclusion that it was really special because we were able to bring some of the largest artists to the smallest room that they've played in years. So these artists are playing massive festivals. They're playing all over the world. And then they come to Chicago and they get a proper Chicago experience. You are in front of the DJ. You can literally touch them. Please don't. But you can, you can literally touch them. And the person that's telling you not to is probably me or one of the team. And it was the coolest experience. And in that room was the passion was born. In that room, people fell in love with what we were able to create because it was all word of mouth. And that was the craziest thing. We were not on Google Maps. We were not advertising. It was your friend told you, and then you walked into the room and fell in love, hopefully fell in love.
Yeah, I couldn't find it on Google Maps for the longest time, by the way. That was annoying, and then I saved it. It's actually a saved place in my Google Maps, RIP though. But yeah, it it was so incredible to see the first few area code events then turn into this. I mean, how do you do it from a logistical perspective, doing a show at a different venue almost every week?
Yeah, so we made the decision to make the shows 500 plus. That was the first choice that we made, and the reason we did it is because we honestly needed to give these artists a growth path. If we didn't do it, they would have gone somewhere else, right? So we're building a market for the artists, and we had to give them a pathway to come back. You know, they're not going to come back and play that 200 cap room again. So we made the decision to grow what's like the next level. That 500 cap is that next level. So where do we do it? House calls was really special because we made the choice not to go into existing venues. And that was a really hard choice to make because honestly, these venues are reaching out and going, well, come, just do your party here. The easiest path would have been to do that. But what happened was our community, we needed to keep the trust that we had built at the listening room. So we wanted to keep everything really feeling intimate, but also feeling new and exciting. We use the phrase, the door is unlocked, but you have to find the door. So it's a really cool experience for someone to not know the address, to follow us on Instagram, to sign up for our texting chain, and to find that address. And we did it once at a car wash. That was our first one. Over 700 people came to that first event.
Wow.
That was a great
amazing.
party.
Also, quick shout out, the two of these magnificent people have been at every single first that I've ever had in the music industry, and it is the most beautiful thing, and that is Chicago right there, that support. And yeah, we had that first event, 700 people. After that, we were hooked. We were like, we're never not doing this.
And shout out Pure Play.
And shout out Pure Play. We started a series together called Pure Play at the Listening Room, and it was one of the most special series we could have done, and we'll bring it back.
That's amazing. Abigail and Seamus, you've worked with so many other brands outside of music, but that are pretty parallel. How do you bring that? How does that influence you as you're developing your artist project, HOTPRETTY? Because, I mean, you guys are, you know, everyone here is building the ship as they fly it, essentially.
I think it's a few things. We are very referential people. I think we look towards the other interests that we have in life and that aren't just music. Like I know for us both, we're very influenced by fashion. We're fashion people. I work in fashion. And so we have built like a hilariously tall collection of coffee table books in our apartment, and they're all like art, design, fashion, old runway books. And so we love to go back in time and look through all of these amazing collection of books to find all of these references. And I think that's been a big thing that we've used to differentiate HOTPRETTY from what we were doing as solo artists, is injecting these other things that we love, our other great loves artistically, into what we're doing with music. And that's a big thing that I think has set it apart.
Yeah, definitely. And then, I think just storytelling in general, because that's really what a brand is. It's like, how are you? But we as humans are just attracted to story. That's how we understand and process the world, right? And so I think all brand is the story that you're telling about yourself to other people. And if you're not telling that through the format of a story, it really struggles to connect. And that's something that working with brands like Notra, or even in my advertising career of writing social posts or writing broadcast commercials, I think you learn how to convey a message in a story, and that is what branding is in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah, and I've worked with Seamus for some stuff on ARC. Your brain is amazing. Amazing. The way that you see content and you see the longevity of it is such an important thing, and it's a skill that you have to develop over many years. So one thing we've talked a lot about today, really knowing yourself and understanding and being authentic. And I think what happens if you don't know yourself as an artist or as a person, you risk falling victim to trends, feeling like I need to participate in this trend, whether it's a format of show, like, oh, we should do a pop-up in a coffee shop because everyone's doing it. Or, I should make this viral video because that's what everyone else is doing. So how do you maintain authenticity while still kind of adapting to where the industry says it's going?
Don't listen to trends, just point blank. I think the question should be just how do I maintain authenticity? Because if you follow trends, especially social media trends, and let's say you're a newbie DJ who makes one video that goes viral, you will be chasing virality before you even know who you are as an artist. So do not adhere to trends.
Yeah, going viral is not as like great as it sounds.
I had a very similar answer. House Calls was born because we weren't having the experience we wanted. Why would we change to listen to what we perceive other people want when the whole thing worked because it was what we were hungry for? So we are very blessed to have heard this word be thrown around. Like the taste makers that we've grown into has happened because we feed our own souls with it, right? So it's like, what are we looking for? What do we love? What do we want to see? What experience, what party do we want to be at? And that was how it was born, and that's how it's going to continue to grow. Now, that doesn't mean we don't listen to feedback, but that means that we're listening to our community. What does our community want? We're not looking at what does the world say is cool right now. We know our audience, and we know Chicago, and we know our parties, and we're building for you. We're not building for them.
It's such a great point, because those people that have been there since day one, they want the best for you. Your day one fans, the people who stream your music, before anyone else, those are the important people that you should be listening to. I think that's great advice. So let's talk about timing, because I work with a couple Patreon students who have asked me before, like, how do I do this, whether it's with my content or just I want to change my sound. It's what feels good to me. How do you kind of know when is that time to make the pivot, and like what's the first thing you should do? Like if you do want to change your sound, if you do want to announce a new show format, let's talk about the timing.
Yeah, I think it's about following your gut above everything, and especially if you're an artist. It can be a little bit different if you're like a bigger tent brand. I think House Calls has a really nice ability because it's so focused and it's so you guys, like the Portillo's thing with John Summit. Like you guys didn't do that because people are doing pop-ups at like restaurants. You guys did it because you and Drew and Cody are just Chicago as fuck, and it just made sense to do. And like, yeah, I mean, like Drew and Portillo's is like, they're the same person. So yeah, but I think like timing wise, it's like as an artist for sure, just like if you're feeling that itch, you have to dive into it. Now we, with Hot Pretty, like thought about it for like a year before we jumped into doing it. And one thing that we really wanted to do is like, we like to not show process. Some people do show process, and that's cool. We're not into showing process, so we like everything to feel like really polished and finished the second you see it. So for us, it was like until this brand is like locked down and we have a word mark that like blasts everyone else out of the water and stuff, like or photos that look different from everybody else's, like we're not going to launch this. And then once you do have kind of like, I think your pieces put together and you're ready to present it to the world, then just like send it and don't worry about losing. I think we've talked about like, oh, can you alienate past people who are maybe into what you're doing before? And I don't think you do. I think the true fans are going to be down for evolution. And I think if they're not, and this is what you want to be doing, like, great, get them off the boat now, because that's what you're going to be doing. So if like kick them off the boat, that's fine. New people will come in.
That's great advice. And you have to not be afraid to, kind of just tread water for a little bit. When I started my podcast, I was gearing it towards fans like me. And I quickly realized, the only people who listen to my show is DJs. So I need to change this message like right now. And that's part of that feedback that you get, and it's not like necessarily all negative feedback. It's DJs reaching out. There's DJs in my DMs, not fans. So I should probably pay attention to this. So is there a balance that you want to strike when you're in that process? Like, or are you just hard launching it basically? Are you guys hard launching a rebrand, or are you soft launching it? Because that is, I can think of 3 people right now in this room who are stuck in that spot right now and not sure what to do.
Well, and I think I'll speak just from our experience, anecdotally. We never soft launched Hot Pretty, but we did experiment with what it felt like to play together for a really long time. Like, we were individual artists, and we still are. Like, you could book me if you wanted to. Booker. But we would go back to back all the time, but we didn't call it Hot Pretty. It was Abigail back to back Sweet Glass. And as we experimented with that over time, we were like, we wouldn't do this if it didn't feel right and if we didn't fuck with a lot of the same music and have this flow together. And through doing that, we did listen to some feedback from outside promoters, people who were coming in dancing at the club, that they loved seeing us play together and that it was a powerful thing to witness. And obviously that definitely informed the decision to join forces and make Hot Pretty. But when we did decide that we were going to go full steam ahead and like really commit to it, we did hard launch it digitally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really important. It's important to talk about this because social media is like, it's different when we're in person. You can explain, there's a lot more context you're getting. But with social media, everything feels so final. I remember when you guys announced the final party of the listening room, and I was there, and everybody was up behind the DJ booth, and it was just a really beautiful moment. And I think that was like a key thing in kind of like showing people that this is a good thing. We're closing this chapter and we're opening a new one. What were you thinking on that night?
I think it's a great opportunity to show a little bit of diversity between Abigail and Seamus's perspective and mine. And I think, again, remember, like, I'm not a DJ, I'm not a producer. I'm coming from the perspective of I love this world and I want to continue to create spaces that are safe for creators and creatives. So I preach fearlessness. And I think it's really important to remember that no one is going to be as passionate about your idea as you are. And no one is going to know what you want and see your vision. Like, even no matter how many times you describe it, protect your vision and be fearless. Like, we trusted our team. We trusted ourselves. We knew that we had the tools we needed to grow into that next phase. And we knew that the listening room needed to end in order for us to grow. It's like, my dad's here. My dad always says, like, shed the bottom 20% of what you do, right? Like, if the listening room served its purpose, if it helped us grow and build the community, and it was no longer doing that because of XYZ reason, it needed to grow, it needed to go so that we could evolve. And that evolution was exponentially more than we could have ever imagined. And that comes down to, don't be afraid of your own ideas, dive in, and if it means launching a puzzle piece and then the other puzzle piece before people see the whole vision, then launch it. And if you're so scared to launch that second puzzle piece because you want the whole vision, and kudos to you guys for being so confident in your creative ability, but if you're so scared to do that second piece, just do the first one. Like, if you're in front of people doing it, it's so much easier to take that second step. Don't allow the fear to keep you because you don't know what the final version or the final evolution of what you're doing will be.
Well, you answered my next question was, how do you get past the fear of evolving? Because this is a very public, I mean, we're all sitting up here, which is not an easy thing to do. I've been sitting in front of audiences for 10 years and it still scares me. So how do you get past the fear of evolving and trying something new for an audience? Maybe that's when you guys are, playing one of your new tracks that no one's heard before.
Send it.
Send it.
Send it, baby.
I don't think it'll ever like not be scary, but act out of love for yourself and for what you do. Don't act out of fear because fear will just hold you back. And what's the fun in that?
Yeah, and I think for us, dance music is a spiritual pursuit. And so you can't hold anything back from your spiritual life, or you're robbing yourself of like fulfilling your soul. So for us with music and making music and being on the dance floor and DJing, which has always been very spiritual to us, I think it's like, it's almost an offering. It's almost like a prayer to like just put yourself out there and do the thing.
I want to evoke what Terry was talking about. He was talking about surrounding himself with people who believed in him, right? And he spoke about it passionately, but he's absolutely right. Like, the people around you should help you be fearless. It's not like you're in this alone running your own world in your bubble. Like, look around. There are so many people who love this the way we love it, and take that and let it help you fly. Like, we built the most incredible supportive team, and our team is looking at us and going, okay, where are we going next? But they believe in us and they believe in the vision, and they got there because we proved it to them. So just continue showing the people around you that you can and you will persevere and you won't stop. And once you show people that, they will continue to believe in you. Whether it's your personal project, whether it's a company you're building, whether it's an event series, whatever it may be, like just keep going and believe in yourself. Other people will see that and that will resonate with them, and then build that circle of trust. That's what's going to make you go to the moon.
Wow, it's amazing. All right, one more question before we get to audience Q&A. All of you up here wear so many hats. You work with so many different brands. You're doing your own social media. You're working on other brands' social media. You're running parties. And so we can get so caught up in what we need to do today, it is hard to look at what's to come in the future. And I mean, that even scares me. It's like, God, am I thinking, I'm so in the moment. What happens after Chicago Music Nexus, guys? I don't know. 2025, we start planning, but like, So what's your advice for people who need to balance, staying present, but also looking ahead?
There's no magic answer. Like, how many times have we been in a room in our party and we're like, okay, the headliner's on, everything is good. Okay, like now 2 weeks from now we have a really big party, like I'm already stressed out about it. But you should be present, you should be enjoying, because you are also the consumer, right? Like, as much as you want to be like, I'm just here providing, like you started this or you did this because you loved it. You have to make sure you're loving it. Be present, go in the crowd, go and have literally look at everything from every angle and hear and feel it. Does it feel right? Does it look right? Does it look how you want? Like, use those questions to challenge you to be present. But if you are the leader of your own project, of your own company, whatever it is, it's your job to look forward, and so that everyone else can have their role to help that project happen. And it is a bit of a sacrifice when you have to be like, okay, everyone else is having a good time. That was my goal achieved. Now it's my job to go and figure out the next thing so that everyone else can come and they have a mission too.
Yeah, we called our first company Manifest because of that idea of manifestation, which has become very almost popular, that it's like twee now, but I still very much believe in it. And this idea of imagining the future you want to live, and then you there's like the two sides of the coin, right? There's imagining the future that you want to live in and that future for yourself. And then there's this second principle, which came from the same practice of meditation where we got the idea of manifestation from, which is called skill in action. And skill in action is about being wholly present in the moment, and the way that all these kind of pathways to that manifestation arise when you're very present in the moment and paying attention. Because when you have that clear vision of the future in your head, and you know where you want to get to, and then you're in the present moment and you're like living in the present, all those little pathways that will get you there start to kind of appear, and then you can pursue them. And that's like, they were talking about relationships in the last panel, and I think that's the same thing. Like, sometimes you'll meet someone and have a future memory of them, I like to call it. When you meet someone, you're just like, oh my God, and that's how I felt when we met these guys, for sure. And so many people in this room, Sherm, so many of our friends who are here, when we met them, we were like, oh my God, I just know in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to be talking about remember when we were all starting out together. So yeah, that idea of manifestation and imagining your future, but then allowing yourself to be present in the moment to see the pathways that are going to rise to get you there.
Yeah. So did you want to add something, Abigail? He said it all. Yeah, being present is so important, because we can get lost in especially in a party environment, you just get swept up in it, and taking that moment to just come back to center and understand, wow, what's working so well? Why do people love this? Just really keeping that top of mind, I think, is so important. So that's a great answer. Okay, we have time for a couple Q&As, I think, right? Sherm, we got the time? All right, we're good. Okay, let's start right here. The question was, how do you cut through the noise and not fall victim to trends?
Okay, so I'll say what we do, and then I think you should speak to the artist perspective, if you're comfortable. So, full transparency, I do not run the social media. We have a creative director, his name is Drew Connor, he's in the back. He runs all of the creative aspect of what we do at House Calls, and he sees it and he feels the culture, and it's the craziest thing ever. But he will always say, if he's bored, you're bored, right? So it's he wants to see things on our social media that keeps him engaged. If that's the same thing that happened at the listening room. If we're bored, you're probably bored, right? It's how do we stay relevant? Again, you fell in love with this as a consumer, right? So you want to be seeing things on your page that you're posting that would be useful or helpful or exciting for you to see. So like always create something that feels authentic. Also like the brand recognition piece I think is so important. Like if someone looks at House Calls to me, I'm like, okay, you better know that's a House Calls flyer. You better know that's some House Calls content right when you see it. There's ways to build a framework that within it you can play. It should be recognizable, it should be authentic, but it should continually be exciting.
I think it also goes back to what I mentioned earlier about references. I think research and reference things that you really fuck with that have happened in the past. Don't look at what other pages are posting. Don't look at the style of photography. Don't look at the captions, the copywriting, anything. Go back and find things that are like really, really like, this is what I want to do. And use Virgil Abloh's 3% rule. If you change something 3%, you can call it your original idea. And I think take that approach and see if it works for you.
But yeah, the digging into the references is so true. Like where you get your references cannot be on social media in this day and age, I don't think. Like pick up a book, but watch a YouTube documentary from 1989. Like, go for a walk, buy something from a brand you've never bought before and hold it in your hands. I mean, we worked on the Area 909 stage design at ARC, which has been great, and it's nice. People like 909. And we just brought it to Radius, but the whole stage design for that came out of Abigail browsing through a coffee table book that we had and being like, oh my God, these water totes are so cool. And originally we were going to use it for the entrance to Serum, but we weren't able to do that. We wanted to totally change where the Prism entrance was. But it ended up making perfect sense at ARC, and now we're moving those around to Radius and stuff. And the reason it hit with people is because they hadn't seen something like that before. And you don't have to come up with something that no one's ever done before, but it's especially as an artist, and this is true for producing too, when you get into producing, try to go back to really old records and records that people maybe aren't listening to now, and that's where you'll find all the great ideas. Everything we're producing now is 1999 to 2002 trance that we're inspired by.
I want to add one quick thing just before we move on. This is my personal way of handling things, and everyone handles it differently, but again, relationships. Be in that green room longer than you think you need to. And this is going to sound hilarious, but those conversations with other people in our world that happen after the party, I know we're all tired. I know we're all, I get it. But be in that green room. If you're in there, if you found your foot in the door, if you're in that room with those people, who knows when you're going to see them again? That is your chance, even if you're a fly on the wall. Listen to what they're saying, hear what people are excited about, and just literally take inspo from it. Oh, that person's really excited about that artist. Okay, what is that artist doing? What's making them excited? Stay in that room, hear what people say, just observe, and then there will be a moment where you have value to add, and you will do that, and you will be that person, but listen to everything everyone around you says.
I've been in your guys' green room and met some cool people, so.
Yes, they have a great green room. I love the reference advice. I get my reference from historical dramas. I don't know why. I just love historical dramas. I love Victorian architecture, and it's great, and it really does help you put together a unique story for whatever your creative project is that is uniquely your own, even though it draws inspiration from existing things. So.
Yeah, and I have a fat collection of coffee table books, so if anybody needs a recommendation, just
hit her up.
Hit me up.
All right, I think, yes.
Hey guys, just to make sure you can hear every question and piece of feedback from the audience, this question was, in regards to the references specifically, I find myself doing that, but to a point of procrastination. Do you have any suggestions on how to stay focused?
Definitely feel that. I think find people whose work is that, let's say you're trying to make a flyer. Find graphic designers that you really rock with their style. Do as much research as you feel necessary, but don't overdo it. And then let your creative process and the designer's creative process, again, I'm just speaking to flyer design, bring them the references and then work together on it. I would say you don't need to overthink it. Be precise and be intentional, but don't overthink it because then you'll just never see a finished product.
And I think in the creative world, back yourself into a corner that you have to get yourself out of. So promise to someone that you're going to deliver them something on a certain date. Like the best stuff will come out of that like moment of desperation sometimes. So like if you're creative and you find yourself struggling with like the self-starter or the like finishing things, like back yourself into a corner. Say I'm going to play a gig and it's going to be all originals and you haven't finished any originals and you know it's going to be in 4 weeks. Like literally do it because you will. You'll get it done, or you'll like fall on your face and you'll learn from both. So I think definitely back yourself into a corner if you can, if you find that you get stuck with that.
Set goals for yourself and hold yourself accountable. I know it's easy to let fear take the driver's seat, but set goals, stick to them, and let yourself be impressed by what you can do. It's a great feeling.
I love that advice. We had, yes, over here.
Next question up was for Hot Pretty. When it comes to branding, how do they incorporate fashion into their brand, and what pieces of advice do they have for other artists?
That's a good question. So for us, it's a lot of injecting it into like press photos. We love to do kind of like more higher produced, kind of like editorial style press photos and content for Instagram. So that's one way. We work with great photographers that are working in fashion stylists, makeup artists that are like predominantly, they don't really work with DJs, but we're like, please come work with us. And then also we actually take a lot of fashion references into our personal branding when it came to like our logo design, into like, let's say we have like our upcoming shows graphic. We'll take inspiration from runway show invitations, things like that, to inject it into our brand to kind of give it this like edginess. And then also we take the live performance really seriously too, as most DJs should. But it is a performance art, and for me, and speaking for myself, but I know you feel the same way, but dressing is such a big part of the performance of DJing for me, and I love like having that also speak to who I am as an artist, not only the tracks I play, but what I'm wearing, how I'm looking, how I'm feeling about myself is very informed by how I dress.
Yeah, and I have to mention, we have a stylist in the building, and I'm gonna make everybody look at her. Her name is Camille, and she styled me today, and she loves styling DJs. So if you guys want a stylist, they are accessible. They are like, she is so amazing. She loves working with artists. You don't need to like you don't need to be like Kanye West to have a stylist. Anybody can and should have a stylist, and you guys are a great testament to that. Sure, how are we looking on time? We got one more?
We got one more.
Okay, one more. All right, I feel like a bad guy. Sherm, you pick. You pick. Okay. All right. How about all the way in the back?
Next question was for Abby from House Calls. And when it comes to House Calls, what one thing is she most proud of?
Great question. What are you most proud of?
Spina, melt my heart. I have to say 2 things. I'm so sorry to do that to you, Spina. My number 1 is the team. Like, without a doubt in my mind, I have no idea how we built such a powerful team. Okay, maybe a little bit of an idea, but unbelievable strength comes from every single person on that team. And a lot of them started at CodeCheck. And I'm saying that because don't be afraid to take that job. It might not pay the most in the world, but they are all integral members of the team now. And we're looking for more CodeCheck people, I'm just saying. But they worked incredibly hard to gain our trust, and we worked incredibly hard to gain theirs, and together I feel we can do anything in the world. And that informs my second, which is the community. Like, thank God you guys like what we do and you guys have fun at our parties, but the not doing the ads was like the coolest thing ever, because everyone taught each other how to act, right? We didn't go and book the $50,000 DJ and everyone just showed up randomly. Like, you guys all taught each other that here we have fun, here we let go, here we have permission to be ourselves. And that happened because each and every single person that came to our party told their friend that that's how we are. And the 2 of those together is like the most powerful thing to me about House Calls.
I love that. Well, guys, you will all be available and willing to chat with everyone here during our networking hour. I think this concludes it. This has been an incredible note to end on. Thank you for being pillars in the Chicago house music community. We're so grateful.